з об'єктів Януковича.
Yanukovych did not keep money on his name. Even his main house, where he spent last years of his life in Ukraine, it was registered on the charity fund, not on Yanukovych himself.
Behind that charity, a dizzying web of companies based in tax havens around the world. I'm Will Jordan. I've come to Kiev, the Ukrainian capital. Al Jazeera's investigative unit has obtained a drive filled with hundreds of documents about Yanukovych's network. Bank statements, contracts and emails from 2011 through the revolution until 2015. They place Viktor Yanukovych, the ultimate Eastern European oligarch, at the helm of a global corruption network. This investigation is about how that network still operates today. And through one crooked contract, we see how oligarchs do business, often with the unwitting assistance of Western banks. We've called it the quick pace deal.
Unbelievable. It sounds like an agreement between criminal bosses. You can sign it with your blood.
By most estimates, Yanukovych stole billions. Ukrainian investigators traced and froze 1.5 billion. A Cyprus-based company called Quick Pace Limited holds $160 million of that in cash and bonds. But prosecutors froze this money because it's stolen. It can't be legally bought nor sold.
The majority of judges in Ukraine, they are themselves engaged in corruption. They are still those appointed under Yanukovych.
We've gathered evidence that establishes which oligarchs are trying to make illicit profits from the quick pace deal. We've shown this to investigators, including Jon Benton, the former head of the International Corruption Unit at Britain's National Crime Agency.
These are really, really complex investigations. You've got to go through thousands and thousands and thousands of documents. It's following the money and working out, essentially, the route the money takes.
It appears that Quick Pace Limited was part of a massive embezzlement and money laundering network under the Yanukovych regime.
Is it legal to be trading frozen assets or to be planning for them moving?
It's a criminal offence. The whole idea is I've frozen the asset because I think it's the proceeds of crime. It's like trading in stolen goods that have been taken by the police. You're putting cash in the getaway car, aren't you?
Our documents reveal that buyer one in the Quick Pace deal is Alexander Onyshenko, who operates behind offshore company Fastelo Trading Limited, your typical Ukrainian oligarch.
Oligarch is a term that most people didn't know 20 years ago. It's kind of come out of the Russian system, out of the Russian privatization program, and these are extremely rich people.
He loves horses. He's a flamboyant oligarch. He likes spending money on expensive things, like they all do.
He sponsored the Miss Ukraine contest and partied with the stars. Pamela Anderson, Paris Hilton, Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Onyshenko, like a lot of Ukrainians, made money in the gas business.
I started to produce gas in Ukraine. Actually, that I did one of the biggest company in Ukraine that was sold 3 years ago.
Onyshenko was seeking asylum in Europe and agreed to be interviewed because he believed it would help clear his name. At first, we didn't say that we knew about the secret quick-pace deal. He was happy to talk about his famous friends. You know Donald Trump?
Yeah, he's doing horse competition in Palm Beach. Also, he was the owner of this contest, Miss Universe. He did once this in Moscow, then I met him there, so we have a good relationship with him.
Our document reveals buyer 2 in the quick-pace deal, Pavel Fuchs. His company, Dorchester International Incorporated. He's a real estate tycoon who featured in a Russian business program.
Имя – Павел Фукс. Компания – MosCityGroup. Семейное положение – женат, 2 детей. Хобби – большой теннис, иностранные языки.
Fuchs promotes a hard man image.
Делал, да, был, да, в юности, да. Я не люблю, когда врут, да.
One, Fuchs is friends with now US President Donald Trump. He's negotiated with him several times since 2004, but never completed a deal to build a Trump hotel in Moscow. President Putin has honored Fuchs for his contribution to the Russian economy. Fuchs owns several prestigious properties in the Russian capital. He built this complex in partnership with the powerful son-in-law of former Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Another partner was a Kazakh businessman, later sentenced to jail over a multi-billion-dollar fraud.
Вникаю, слушаю, что мне говорят.
He's a tough boss.
Я вообще никогда не угрожаю. Ну, были случаи, когда вот я там делал ремонт квартиры,
Да.
там еще где-то дома. Ну, были какие-то, да. Или я, допустим, говорил, не курите, приходил, курили. Я еще раз просил не курить.
Так. Они опять курили?
Но потом, да, они ели свои сигареты, эти бычки.
Прелесть какая. И как им?
И потом переставали курить.
Mr. and Mrs. Fuchs published social media snaps with a high-profile jeweler and his wife. Jacob Arabo was jailed for 2 years in 2008 in a US money laundering case. Fuchs socializes with influential politicians. A Russian MP from President Putin's party, now a senior banker. The mayor of Ukraine's second city, Kharkiv. Left in a wheelchair after a mafia-style assassination attempt.
What's interesting about him is that the extent to which he shows that the separation between Ukraine and Russia can be a bit skin deep. The elites of both Ukraine and Russia, for them, it's basically the same country. The money flows backwards and forwards. The business deals go backwards and forwards.
A recent leak of offshore company documents, the Panama Papers, establishes Fuchs at the helm of a huge global business empire. It begins with his offshore company, Dorchester International Incorporated, St. Kitts and Nevis. It has holdings in companies all over the globe, indirectly in Golden Eagle Trust in Jersey. Owned by billionaire Vijay Mallya, today facing extradition to India on fraud charges, which he denies. Another link, mining in Tanzania and Cameroon. To palm oil billionaires in Malaysia. Even state-run pharmaceuticals in Cuba.
They all operate as a kind of transnational clan. They'll have their lawyers in Cyprus, they'll have their money in Latvia. It's an international structure which they've created since the fall of the Soviet Union, which is very, very resilient and very hard to penetrate.
Since the collapse of the Soviet Union a quarter century ago, Ukraine's been caught between Russia and the West. After the 2014 revolution, a pro-Western government's been in place. It's launched a war on corruption, fought by a national anti-corruption bureau built on American and European money.
Применяется для штурмовых мероприятий. Он весит 12 килограмм. Передала нам американская.
Позовите мужа!
The bureau's well known for arresting low-level judges and civil servants and counting out their cash on camera. But it hasn't got any high-level convictions.
Сопротивление очень большое со стороны, скажем так.
A crucial tool for any oligarch such as Pavel Fuchs. For a small fee, they'll set up a company for you, and you can remain anonymous. It can be offshore with an address that's not yours. The named director won't be you, the named secretary won't be you. You simply control it in the background, while your nominee cutouts protect your identity.
If anyone ever comes to ask them a question, they just sort of throw their hands up in the air and say, I don't know, I was just a nominee director.
Hello, is this Chesterfield Group? I came to ask you some questions about Pavel Fuchs.
And so effectively you have these cutout characters that depersonalize and distance the money from any of the real perpetrators of the situation.
We emailed and called you, but you didn't respond.
You can create a company in the UK for £13, and it takes you, I've done it, about 9 minutes.
Hello?
No one checks the information that you provide, literally no one. And there are 350,000 companies created by company formation agents in the UK every year.
This office and Chesterfield Group are closely linked to Fuchs. Chesterfield's building is owned by a company based in the British Virgin Islands, Gerberer Group, bought in 2015 for around $5 million with a Barclays mortgage. Gerberer Group is owned by Fuchs's company Dorchester International. Chesterfield has branches in Cyprus, Isle of Man, Ireland, the Bahamas, and of course London. In many cases, Dorchester International is the named director.
If you've got a company formation agent registered and that company formation agent is forming companies for you, then that's immediately suspicious. It's a huge, huge alarm bell.
Chesterfield appears to be a captive company formation agent. In other words, creating companies for its owner.
This makes perfect sense. I mean, if I was an oligarch, I'd do that. Yeah, own your own company formation agent. Why not? Sell them to your mates. Give them, here you go. It's like a Christmas present. Here you go, here's a London company with a bank account. It's brilliant.
In part 2, we confront Alexander Onyshenko, one of the buyers of QuickPace.
There is like kind of business that you can buy cheap and try to fix the problem to make the money.
And we reveal the man believed to be the seller of the frozen assets.
He is unbalanced and unhinged. He's a vengeful person, unprincipled and ruthless. He is unbalanced and unhinged. He's a vengeful person, unprincipled and ruthless.
The story of our documents takes us back to the heyday of the corruption of Ukraine's former president, Yanukovych, deeper into one network of his offshore companies. It traces the path of hundreds of millions of dollars out of Ukraine from 2011 to his escape in 2014. Through foreign bank accounts and into the pockets of Yanukovych and his cronies.
Since Ukraine became independent in 1991, it has been essentially looted by its elites again and again and again, and the tactics they use are essentially always identical.
Faceless lawyers, accountants, and bankers helped pass hundreds of millions of dollars around the network. Some as loans referenced redistribution of means, some as payments for building materials, home electronics, some for cars, motorbikes, even parquet flooring.
The philosophy of money launderers is to create a situation where the money has moved through so many different companies in so many different countries, in so many different accounts, thereby effectively laundering it because nobody has the resources to figure it out.
While he was still in power, the Yanukovych network used QuickPace to launder money, sometimes moving relatively small amounts via complex paths, with the help of Western banks. One document showed a payment of $4.4 million made by QuickPace from its nominal home as a Cyprus-registered company. The money was held in a QuickPace account in Vienna with Austria's Meinl Bank. It was wired to an account in Frankfurt with Commerzbank, on to Deutsche Bank in New York. It ended up at Baltic International Bank in Latvia, in the account of a shell company, Foxtron Networks Limited. Foxtron, like QuickPace, is registered in Cyprus. None of the banks appear to have raised a red flag, what's called a suspicious activity report.
It's very easy for a bank to fill out a suspicious activity report. They just effectively press a button. The trouble is, who's digesting those suspicious activity reports? And the answer is, in many cases, nobody.
The documents linking QuickPace to Foxtron Networks in turn link QuickPace to one of the world's highest-profile money laundering scandals. It was discovered by Russian accountant Sergey Magnitsky. He was working for an investment firm based in Moscow and run by Bill Browder.
Sergey exposed it. He was then arrested, tortured, and killed in prison.
The Russian government says Magnitsky died of natural causes and accuses Browder of the fraud. Browder claims Russian officials stole $230 million in state funds.
A huge $250 million Russian government embezzlement scheme.
Synonymous with injustice and corruption in Russia.
It's a frightening reminder of how quickly money can disappear.
Our documents reveal that Foxtron Networks had been wired money by QuickPace in March 2014. We then discovered Foxtron was owned by one of the companies at the heart of the Magnitsky affair, Final Limited.
Final Limited is one of the central parts of the apparatus. It's like the spigot on the pipe. Final is effectively a nominee company that is the director for a number of very crucial points in this money laundering network.
Both QuickPace and the company it wired money to, Foxtron Networks, are registered in Cyprus.
Rich Ukrainians funnel their money offshore to Cyprus and then onwards, beyond, and then bring it back again. So it looks like foreign investment, so you can't really tell who owns it.
In the QuickPace deal, another Cyprus company, Prontoservice Limited, is named as the seller of the $160 million in frozen assets. But Prontoservice is just a cutout and nominee shareholder. It owns the assets on paper, but the real owner is hiding behind it. Christina Sarris is the named secretary of Prontoservice, a Cyprus-based lawyer and offshore expert. Sarris refused our request for an interview or to divulge the name of the person behind Prontoservice. But we tracked her down. In a secretly recorded conversation, she confirmed that QuickPace had been sold.
Looking at a company called QuickPace.
It's no longer with us, QuickPace. The client sold it. I remember it because it was an office closing and it was a nightmare.
The Cyprus company registry shows QuickPace was transferred to one of Pavel Fuchs's many companies, Evermore Property Holdings, with the help of his company formation agent, Chesterfield. The leaked documents also provide evidence that the QuickPace deal was done, or at least that its first phase began. Pavel Fuchs apparently made a payment from a London bank. A transfer, $2 million from Barclays Canary Wharf. Deutsche Bank in New York was used to move the money. They passed it to an offshore company with an account in Latvia and a mystery owner. The money went through, no red flags.
Western banks have had a hard time making money over the last few years. So when somebody shows up and says, I'd like to set up an account with $100 million, they're gonna have to look for a pretty good reason not to set up that account.
Other documents in the leak lead us to a British village north of London. Under British law, there's a type of company that allows foreign owners to avoid tax and scrutiny. It's called a limited liability partnership.
Companies are brilliant. Some people call them getaway cars for corrupt money. I have heard them better described as armor plating.
One of the companies is registered here. This is the official office of a company worth hundreds of millions of dollars, Fincor Resources LLP. According to bank statements leaked to us, Fincor made $328 million in just 6 months of 2013. But in public accounts filed with UK authorities, Fincor claimed it made less than 7,000. It looks like fraud, so we came to ask about it. The managers at the address of the registered office had refused our request for an interview.
Hello there. My name is Will Jordan. I work with Al Jazeera. We're doing an investigation into Ukraine.
This Hertfordshire office has registered over 1,500 companies, so the people who work here just run a postbox service. With the director, secretary and address all being proxies, finding out who really owns a company can be almost impossible.
If you own something in your own name, then you can just look on the company register or the property register and say, oh, there you go, it's Oliver's house. But if I own that house in a company, a British company, and if my British company is owned by, let's say, a Cypriot company, and if my Cypriot company is owned by, let's say, a Panamanian company, and if my Panamanian company is owned by a Nevis company, then if you want to find out who owns this house, you have to go to every one of those jurisdictions and ask them who owns that company.
Hello? Hello? I wanted to ask about a couple of companies. Fincor Resources?
Fincor Resources features in the files. Its nominee directors were also involved in the Magnitsky scandal. A Latvian citizen called Yuri Vitman signs the papers for Fincor. He's just a cutout for the person who really owns and controls the company. Another director is Stan Gorin, again a cutout whose name is regularly used as a frontman by money launderers. These named directors may be paid for their nominee role, but are likely ignorant of any fraud.
The information you've presented is what I call the pipe. This is the pipe through which dirty money from Russia, Ukraine, and other countries in that part of the world all flow through. These are all effectively part of the same criminal operation.
The pipeline leads to Moscow. As well as the links with the Magnitsky affair, the documents feature hundreds of emails from lawyers based here. They're so concerned to conceal the name of their client, they write in cryptic language.
Good evening. February 26, 2015. Put the book on the top shelf. Technical task. Read the book and give a positive review of it. Cancel the decision of 3 floors. To leave in force the decision of 1 and 2 floors. Sincerely. Is it agreed with my supervisor?
But who is the supervisor? We found the answer buried deep in a key document. A loan agreement shows QuickPace was used to put up collateral by a company called Vetek Media Invest in order to borrow huge funds in October 2013. Vetek belongs to Sergey Kurchenko, known as the baby-faced gas king of Ukraine. By age 27, he was worth $400 million. Former President Yanukovych apparently treated him like a wallet. Kurchenko gave cash to the president whenever he needed it.
He was given control of a chunk of the gas trade. He made a lot of money for himself, and then he cut back most of it then to his political patrons, which was, Yanukovych or Yanukovych's son.
There's more evidence pointing to Kurchenko as the seller. A lawyer called Boris Gutsov appears in the emails. Russian business records show he's director of United Media Holdings. United Media used to belong to Sergey Kurchenko.
Kurchenko was just businessman, but I can say a very talented corrupt guy because he used very tricky schemes, very unusual schemes to steal money.
Today, he's in hiding in Moscow, wanted in Ukraine, sanctioned in the US and Europe. His office is in a skyscraper complex developed by Pavel Fuchs's companies. Two of his former drivers told us more about him.
Kurchenko is always asking when we will arrive. If you don't answer immediately, you'll be fired. It was the worst job I ever had.
He swears, he screams at his employees, he fires 2 to 3 people every month. He's very inadequate.
The drivers are worried that they'll be in danger if their former boss finds out they've been talking to us.
He is unbalanced and unhinged. He's a vengeful person, unprincipled and ruthless.
Kurchenko's only given 3 interviews to journalists. One was Ivan Golunov.
Это было необычное интервью. Мы поехали на лифте, открылись двери лифта, и первое, что я увидел, это направленный на меня автомат. Я совсем не ожидал, когда мне, собственно, пиарщик сказал: «Окей, сколько вы хотите за это получить?» Я взял конверт, они успокоились. Я потом после интервью, когда мы делали фотосъемку, я их оставил на столе, и никто больше про это не вспоминал.
We tracked down Kurchenko using information from his former chauffeurs.
He's guarded by Alpha Group, former counter-terrorism special forces.
They have fought in wars and have state medals. They are armed with rubber bullets.
Just before 7 a.m., the guards receive information that he's coming. They get in position.
There are 5 cars, 18 people in the convoy.
The cars are fitted with signal blockers with a 200-meter range.
The convoy includes armed security. Kurchenko travels in the second bulletproof vehicle. There's a mobile ambulance with a medic. There's a 4th vehicle blocking the entrance to the complex, and a 5th sweeper car.
Kurchenko had an argument with some Chechen guys in a restaurant. After that, he stepped up his security.
Kurchenko rushes out, glimpsed for a split second before he's inside the building. His staff bring his things, and the drivers park and wait.
We often drive him to the Ministry of Economic Development, the Ministry of Natural Resources, the National Space Agency.
Also the Russian presidential administration, state gas firm Gazprom, state oil firm Rosneft, state-funded VTB Bank.
Он участвует уже в этих делах, в которых есть интерес российского правительства. Момент на 2014 год он пытался представить, что у него есть какие-то возможности, что ему не страшно работать в Крыму.
Ukraine's spy agency reports that he's helping the Russian side in the conflict in Ukraine. He's running some of the biggest coal, oil, and gas companies in annexed Crimea and areas controlled by Russian separatists.
Он стал использоваться для поставок горючего, энергоснабжения в Луганскую и Донецкую народные республики.
In most countries, you have the government, you have criminals, and you have businessmen. In Russia, all of those distinctions have effectively disappeared.
It's the interest of Russia to destroy Ukraine from inside. It's against the interest of Kremlin for Ukraine to succeed in anti-corruption.
Through the quick-paste deal, we've uncovered a plot to profit from the billions stolen by the clan surrounding former Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych. a baby-faced billionaire used dozens of lawyers, seemingly to turn frozen assets into clean money. Our evidence was confirmed by one of the buyers of QuickPace.
It was one of the businessmen from the ex-government, yeah.
Sergey Kurchenko.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Kurchenko.
Yeah.
For Onyshenko, buying assets stolen in a grand corruption case is just another day at the office.
So there is like kind of business that you can buy cheap and try to, how to say, to fix the problem, to make the money.
It's about a company.
When I revealed that we had the QuickPace document, Onyshenko denied that the deal went ahead.
It was like normal business. But this one has not happened, yeah? We didn't buy, yeah?
You didn't buy that?
No. They wanted to sell us assets which was already frozen. They gave us very good discount, but then we checked, it was like impossible to unfreeze this activity.
They may not yet have made money, but our evidence directly contradicts Onyshenko's account that the deal did not go ahead. Official documents record a change of ownership of QuickPace. A lawyer in Cyprus said the sale had happened.
The client sold it, yeah. I remember it because it was an office closing.
Ukraine's anti-corruption bureau also confirmed the sale.
Onyshenko и вместе с российским бизнесменом Fuchsом выкупили эти.
So it never happened?
No, never happened, yeah.
At the offices of Ukraine's anti-corruption bureau, a powerful politician with his entourage has arrived to complain.
Антикорупційний прокурор Холоднitsky по прямому апарату, по зв'язку з президентом України, отримує команди, проти кого порушувати кримінальні справи, проти кого закривати кримінальні провадження. Ми ж поінформовані. Це ж вишенка на торті.
The millionaire politician had just learnt that he was under investigation.
Якби я тут сидів на вашому кріслі, я підписав би руками дрогнула. А ви червонієте, ви потієте, ви бліднієте і ви худаєте.
The argument all streamed live on national television. This is Ukraine's corruption fight. Wealthy politicians versus Nazar Holodnitsky, the young new anti-corruption prosecutor.
Вказаний політик просто влаштував шоу, цирк, зібрав з собою ще близько десятка народних депутатів. І ви, на жаль, вибачте за нашу країну, ви стали свідком цирку, який відбувався.
Про приховування від українців мільярдних статків. Я не в парламенті, я в рідній Україні.
We are witnessing old traditional corrupt system trying to do everything possible to destroy this new agency.
Якщо ви питаєте, наскільки багато тиску, якщо важите його на вагу там кілограмами, то я не знаю, там вже за тонни перейде.
The Anti-Corruption Bureau is drowning in paperwork, and its case against Onyshenko is falling apart.
What chances do you think there are of seeing Mr. Onyshenko behind bars?
Це як гадати на кавовій гущі. Ми, правоохоронці, ми робимо все, щоб він поніс відповідальність.
So what chance do you think there is that you will ever go to prison?
I don't know. It's like we say in Ukraine that nobody insure from the prison, yeah?
Ukraine's anti-corruption chiefs console themselves by saying they've seized Onyshenko's private jet.
Зберігається так, як це повинні зберігатися речові докази. На аеродромі одному, не можу казати де, але зберігається, скажімо так.
But even that appears to be an illusion. We tracked down the jet sitting at Luton Airport in the UK. It was sold in March last year for $25 million. Today, it's for charter to the super rich, costing around $30,000 an hour.
Did they seize one of your private jets?
No. This is bullshit, yeah. There is not, they seize nothing from me, nothing, zero, yeah?
For its people, now the poorest in Europe, the Ukrainian tragedy plays on.
Скажу вам чесно, після Майдану погано сплю. Я думаю, що я сплю, і в мене така постійна тривога іде по жилах, по крові, що ну, просто розпач, тривога.
Я розумію, що всі хочуть, знаєте, суди лінча, повішаних корупціонерів на центральній площі столиці. Так не може бути.
Alexander Onyshenko has now been granted asylum in Spain. Pavel Fuchs is stepping up his investments in Ukraine, buying gas companies and possibly a bank. Sergey Kurchenko has London lawyers working to overturn his sanctions and unfreeze his money.
Everyone gets away with it. If you look at the amount of money that's stolen in developing countries globally every year, it is estimated at $1 trillion with a T. How much is recovered? Out of every $1,000 that's stolen, 25 cents.
Імітація, і нічого в нас не йде. І корупція, вона ще більше стала, ніж була при Януковичі. У нас не було крові перший Майдан 2004 рік. Ось, і тому просто зараз я не бачу виходу.
Єдиним фронтом